Naruto is from a god clan. Let's go. Long before even the creation of the planet, later named Earth, an ancient species roamed the universe. A species that descended from the creator of the universe itself. A species incomprehendibly powerful. This species traveled through the galaxies to strive for peace between planets and races, as well as inside planets, inside a civil war. At least that's what they saw it as they didn't understand the concept of cutting a planet in pieces in so-called nations or countries. The Otsutsuki were trying to do almost the opposite, devoiding a planet of life, conquering it, and committing crimes unthinkable. The origins of the Otsutsuki actually stem from the godly clan, a young child once lost on a mission of peace on a planet far away at the edge of a distant galaxy, conquered the planet to show his might, though he was not satisfied. Over the years of living on this planet and ruling as a king, he got bored, but also very, very sad and lonely. He thought that his people, his own family and clan had left him behind, forgotten him, and so he started to spread his genes amongst the people and train the population to become stronger, much stronger. They started going to other planets themselves, but instead of striving for peace like the godly clan, they started to absorb the life energy of those planets. This child that ruled the planet was named Miyamoto. He was of a clan that some thought of to be omniscient, all-knowing, and omnipotent, all-powerful, which is why the godly clan came to be known as the omni-clan throughout the universe. Miyamoto went on to name his new planet the King's Realm, and the ones he trained and their students and so on he named the Otsutsuki, and he himself became the Otsutsuki King, by some even considered the god, or at least the god of the Otsutsuki. Meanwhile, on the omni-clan's planet, or rather on their home planet, their origin planet, a child was being born. This child was born to elites of the omni-clan, and everyone was there to witness it. Children were very rare to the omni-clan, as their species lives incredibly long. They don't reproduce often. So it was also a gathering, a symbol for the future. Naruto was the child's name. The child was even blessed by the king and queen of the planet themselves, and they granted him not just luck, but a blessing of protection. Naruto went on to grow around a wide variety of people, some very wise, some very powerful, and some simply kind. He appreciated each one of them and was a very loving child. However, this would be put to the test. He would be sent off to a planet that was waging war and had been waging war for a long time, or at least what the inhabitants of the planet considered a long time. The planet was called Earth and had been waging war for hundreds of Earth's years, which is many generations of humans, the inhabitants. Naruto would be sent to this planet in hopes that he could resolve their issues and get the peace that they knew Naruto truly wanted. They would go as far as delete his current memories to make his mission as if he was actually born on the planet and he would be trusted by the lords themselves. The idea was actually introduced by the king himself. Naruto would now be sent off. He closed his eyes, and with the kiss of his mother on his forehead, he felt unable to open his eyes once more. He was in a completely different setting, without being able to pinpoint any specific memory. He was in a black room, with many bright points all around him, except for one big object. It was a sphere, with blue, green, and brown, and it was huge. Naruto moved closer and closer to this object until he found himself in a blank room. This time, he had no memories left. He had absolutely nothing, just the knowledge that he had nothing. Naruto was greeted with the hug of a woman that seemed to be quite old in Naruto's opinion. Naruto was crying. He was scared that he remembered nothing. It was scary. There were unfamiliar voices, each one with a different emotion, though all facing the same situation. Naruto was being soothed by 3 different people, and the atmosphere calmed him as well. But then everything went to shambles. Just after he was placed in the arms of a beautiful red-haired woman, he was snatched away by a different person. This time, forcefully. A person whose face was covered. He doesn't remember much from this point on. It all happened in a flash. The last thing he can remember is being on a pedestal, with a big monster in front of him. It used its claw to penetrate the chest of two people right in front of him. One was the previously mentioned red-haired woman. There was a ton of blood, some even splattered on him. Naruto was told a bunch of stuff he didn't understand at all, so it was kind of useless. This was all being said by the red-haired woman and the person behind her. A few seconds after that, the beast in front of him disappeared, and the only thing Naruto could remember and understand was the old man that had now found him and the red-haired woman's last words before death. The months and years passed by quickly as the village was rebuilt by what Naruto later found out to be the Nine-Tails attack, which happened on the same night of his birth. The people never truly were the same after. It is now 5 years later. Naruto has learned many things about the world he's living in, but most of all, he's learned the hatred that lives in people's hearts. There is a lot of hatred towards Naruto specifically. The people of his home had hated him ever since last year when a man, a former shinobi and now influential figure in belief, had spread the news that Naruto was the reason for the Nine-Tails attack and was the Nine-Tails himself. Naruto was forced to leave his home to go to an orphanage soon after, though he was kicked off even an orphanage. Where was he living before? Naruto was living in an apartment with his two siblings, his sister, 3 years older, Shiru, and his brother, 1 year older, Menma. Also, Minato and Kushina were both 3 years older here, so they already had 2 children. Just a little note from me. They were mostly looked after by Hiruzen, the third Hokage, as well as Tsunade and Jiraiya, 2 of the former legendary Sannin team, 2 extremely skilled shinobi. Jiraiya had come to the village after hearing that Minato had a child, and then Tsunade came when Minato had the second child, and Jiraiya asked very nicely. First she came just for a visit, then she visited more and more. After hearing about the death of Minato and Kushina, she stayed and helped to raise the children. Jiraiya especially had a disliking towards Naruto. All his life, Jiraiya had longed for peace and people to understand each other and love each other, yet he was not able to love Naruto. Naruto symbolized his favorite student's death and big damage to his home village. Minato would have been the child of prophecy, or rather, the person of prophecy. He was not young anymore. Minato would have and already started to bring peace to the world and end the cycle of hatred forever. Naruto was kicked out of his home after that, where he was living with his siblings, because everyone just started to dislike him, which would also give his siblings a bad name, and Jiraiya and Tsunade didn't really mind either if he did go, especially Jiraiya. Even worse, over the months and years, Naruto's sister had been convinced that Naruto was the reason of their parents' death as well. At first she doubted it, but more and more, as it is what villagers said, so it had to be true. So she started to believe it too. Naruto, after being abandoned by the only family he had, was able to get his very own small apartment though. It was given to him as well as a monthly allowance by Hiruzen, the only person that seemed to not hate Naruto. Naruto at this point started to get weird dreams of a beast talking to him. However, he would soon find out that these dreams were not truly just dreams. He started hearing voices, 2 specifically. They said weird, hard to understand things, though this beast continued to consistently talk to the young child in his dreams. One night, when Naruto felt extremely sad, lonely, and just tired, he went to sleep as usual, but had a dream, completely different than the other ones he had previously. This dream was not vivid. He was clearly actually there. He could understand what the beast was saying. It seemed like it was actually introducing itself. Naruto listened closely. He was talking to a beast inside a huge prison-like cell in front of him. Naruto, somewhat drenched in water, as the whole place seemed weird, and the floor was filled with water, about 30 centimeters, 1 foot if you're American, tall. Naruto could just barely make out the outline of a fox, though it seemed to possess more than one tail. Naruto kept listening to what the beast said, and continued to say. It had introduced itself, saying that it is the 9-tailed fox, the legendary tailed beast. However, it did not just act proud and mighty. It also turned into a sadder voice, only a little later, that explained roughly what was going on, and it was clearer that The beast hated a person, whoever this person might be, called Madara Uchiha. The Nine-Tails explained that it was this Madara that controlled it to attack and try to destroy the Leaf Village, therefore also leading to the Hokage's as well as Naruto's mother's death. Naruto, just from hearing the story, already started to hate this Madara person, though there was another side, a side that was telling him to first fully understand everyone's motives and the situation completely, and then draw a conclusion. A side that was much more peaceful and relaxed, laid back. The fox seemed to have its own doubts, and sometimes backpedaled as if correcting itself. However, this was completely different than what Naruto was having. Naruto was just considering a different side of the conflict. The fox was actually split in two pieces, the yin and yang side, the good, kind, and the bad, evil, and hate-filled side. The evil side of the tailed beast had been forced out during the Nine-Tails attack, whilst it was being controlled by Madara, to actually go on, act on the tailed beast's behalf, and destroy the Leaf Village, or try to destroy it. Which is why it was close to being completely split in two, with the bad side taking over and the good side, well, having to find some way to survive. Though after being sealed by the Shinigami, the tailed beast would completely regenerate, though very slowly, inside Naruto, the host, and get back to one piece, to its prime self. Naruto found all this interesting and listened closely to the story. However, then asked for the tailed beast's name, as it hasn't said it yet. The fox laughed and answered, "My name is Kurama." That's a cute name. My name is Naruto. Let's be friends." Kurama was completely surprised by this. No one had ever wanted to be friends with a tailed beast, and he thought that the only reason Naruto was even listening to what Kurama was saying was because he was so sad and lonely that anything talking would be interesting. But Kurama was wrong. Naruto truly wanted to just be friends with a tailed beast. It surprised him, but made him very, very happy. Now throughout the next few weeks and even months, Naruto went out of the house, as before he was confined to a small place. He didn't like to go outside at all. He hated it. Everyone hated him, so he hated being outside. But now he was able to talk to Kurama whilst being outside, and it was great. He felt the sunshine, the breeze. It was great, but the people were still there. He tried to ignore them as much as possible, but they kept throwing things at him, kept screaming, yelling, swearing at him, and things didn't get better even if he was confident or happy. Worst ones were the shinobi. The shinobi were supposed to be proud and strong, though they hated Naruto more than anything. They thought that their fallen comrades, their family who died, was all Naruto's fault. Especially the shinobi who had lost their parents, masters, or students, hated Naruto the most, and bullied him all the time, always when he was spotted anywhere. They threw glass bottles at him, slapped him in the face, hit him down, pinned him to the ground, and sometimes even ran their kunais across his arms, which over the years led to many scars, but luckily no long-term damage. And even when Jiraiya saw Naruto outside, he did not hold back. If anything, Jiraiya was worse. Jiraiya did all those previously mentioned things, hit him, threw things at him, but Jiraiya verbally insulted Naruto. Much, much worse than anyone else. It was very personal. But things that were about Naruto as well as his family, saying that Naruto killed his own parents, that Naruto made his siblings unhappy, made his family unhappy, and was a disgrace to the planet. The other shinobi were bad, yeah, but they were never so personal. They always talked about themselves, about their own person. But Jiraiya picked on Naruto specifically, not as the Nine-Tails, but as Naruto. It was weird, it was confusing, but it was downright immoral. It was the definition of horrible. And Naruto came to hate Jiraiya more than anything. Jiraiya was a symbol for all the hate in the world for Naruto. Jiraiya was the impersonation of hatred. But no one ever stopped him. No one. If anything, they shouted for him to continue. And there was always one night that was particularly bad. It was the night, well, the anniversary of the Nine-Tails attack, but also, it was Naruto's birthday. But no one cared. Well, they did care about the night, but not that it was Naruto's birthday. They cared that it was the anniversary of the Nine-Tails attack. On this night, Naruto always tried to barricade himself in his home and try to sleep through the night and through the whole day, as this was the most horrible day he ever experienced. Out of all 365 days of the year, this one was by far the worst. Everyone hated Naruto more than ever, hit him more, verbally abused him more. In some years, Naruto was bruised up so bad, he was knocked out unconscious on the floor, somewhere in the village, sometimes even almost outside the village, near the village walls, as to not leave trash inside the village, the villagers said, laughing at Naruto almost dying. Naruto bled so much, and the only reason Naruto was able to survive was due to the Nine-Tails' kindness that everyone seemed to not understand, and not even realize that it existed, other than Naruto, of course. And you would think that barricading yourself in a room with no thoughts of leaving anytime soon would stop people from abusing you and bullying you, though that's not the case for Naruto. On some nights, and definitely this one, shinobi and even villagers, normal regular people, though all filled with hatred, rushed into Naruto's apartment. Some broke the door, others threw rocks at Naruto's windows from the street, and the more experienced shinobi even went as far as climbed through the windows to bully Naruto. All this effort just to bully a 6-year-old child. Now, you would think that after some years, the villagers would forget, would stop hating so much. But that was not the case. If anything, things got worse. Naruto now was not only the Nine-Tails, but Naruto was weird. He was an alien to the people of Konoha, not a human, and some even thought not even a tailed beast, a downright alien. He didn't fit in anywhere. Nothing made sense, and nothing was accustomed to him. People didn't know what to call him. He wasn't Naruto. He wasn't even human. He was nothingness. But worse. Trash. Absolute garbage. Naruto hated the village, but he hated himself as well. He thought that he was the reason that everyone hated him, and that it was his fault. Kurama tried to make him understand that it wasn't, but Naruto would not listen, and started hating on himself, just like the villagers had many years before, and continued many years after. Time passed on, as the world seemed to get more depressing for Naruto every day, and he started hating his birthday. Ever since he was kicked out of his home, he somehow managed to survive until he's now 8 years old. He became much more knowledgeable, not just about emotions, hatred, but also he became more knowledgeable about the world, about historical events, facts. He became very smart. The reason he was able to do this is, of course, with Kurama's help, who was willing to do anything for Naruto at this point. And Kurama even helped Naruto, gave him some of his chakra with physical enhancing abilities, that allowed Naruto to actually enter and leave the library of Konoha extremely quickly, allowing him to take some books with him to read, as Naruto would never be allowed to go in, or especially not stay inside the Leaf Village library, and therefore he would never be able to read or check out any books. This was the only way. But over the months and years, Naruto noticed that his skin color seemed to change. At first, his arms. He thought that it might be just a little bit because of all the bruising that had happened over the years. Maybe skin, maybe his own body was tired of Naruto. But that was not the case, as it started to spread throughout his body, and he became paler, with his hair turning paler every day, into a silvery kind of color, which almost resembled that of the Hatake's. And Naruto's body seemed to mature, much more different than the people his age should. He had a much muscular physique than people his age usually would be. Now, this is due a little bit due to the fact that Naruto did a little bit of training. Naruto knew that he needed to protect himself, and Kurama knew this too, which is why Kurama actually offered Naruto to be taught a few things, as throughout Naruto's reading, he has found more and more interest in shinobi, the arts of a shinobi, and the skill set that comes with it. And just out of fun, even tried to use some jutsu, though of course failed miserably. But Kurama saw this not as a joke, but as an opportunity to train Naruto early and make him stronger than his peers, which would also allow him to defend himself in case the village ever tried to use force to remove Naruto for real, and perhaps even try to actually kill him. So Naruto started with some physical training for a few weeks, basic things that he could do at home, and even in his mindscape. He practiced push-ups, squats, jogged in his mindscape, and around his apartment, which was pretty small, but he was able to walk in circles, jump up and down, improve his grip strength, and so on, and even did quite a bit of meditation in real life and in his mindscape. Through this, he also learned that his mindscape didn't have to be such a dull place. He was able to manipulate it into becoming beautiful. The water seemed to disappear more and more as he became a relaxed person and a little bit happier every day. The walls became shinier, not so dull and dirty, but even they were starting to look happy. The smell of the sea started to disappear too, as it wasn't a pleasant smell. It was more of dirty water. But all of that turned into a happy atmosphere, where Naruto was able to practice even him being happy. And with time, gaining Kurama's trust, and Kurama gaining his trust, they were able to make a deal that Naruto would let Kurama free, going as far as deleting the entire prison-like area of his mindscape and turning it into a grass-filled landscape with a big apple tree and even a sun shining in the corner. Now, after these few weeks, Naruto started to train ninjutsu, or rather, started to learn the basics that Kurama was able to teach him, as well as Naruto started reading more and more books about how to actually become a shinobi, started learning about the world of shinobi, but also the exact details of their abilities and how to start learning them and master them, about chakra control, basic jutsu, kunai throwing, and so on. He learned many things, many useful things for the future, and was able to practice almost all of them with Kurama, going as far as even creating kunai in his mindscape. Well, rather, Kurama created them at first with his own chakra, forming it into something physical, and turning it hard like metal, by just concentrating and focusing it. But later, Naruto, when he learned how to use his chakra properly, was, even if it was kind of hard at first, was able to use his chakra, his own chakra, to form kunai, but also to use elements to actually create full-on normal kunai. Now, of course, he could just create these in his mindscape like he did and transformed the whole thing, but that'd be not really good for his training. He did it sometimes, but it'd just be better training to actually make them. So now Naruto is prepared for the academy, and hopefully is able to defend himself at least a little bit. Now before this, the villagers actually got weird feelings from Naruto. Naruto started to dodge more and more of the things that they threw at him, which surprised them, and sometimes Naruto even caught what they were throwing, and one time even threw something back. He first caught it and then threw it right at the person's face. It was an old man, a retired shinobi, but he swore by it that the story was true, which, if anything, made the people start to hate Naruto even more, as he, quote-unquote, tried to hurt an elderly man. And there were more rumors, this one not specifically about Naruto, but connected to him. It was said that library books started to disappear and start to reappear once more, as if they were borrowed by a ghost. Now, anything bad that couldn't be explained directly was linked to Naruto, as he was the embodiment of evil, and anything that happened inside Konoha that was bad was, for some reason, his fault. So, these books that were disappearing were definitely his fault. And they were, but the villagers didn't know that, but they still accused him of it, which made Naruto sad. Of course, he does know that he did this, and it was true that it was his fault, but it's kind of sad that they still ran for complaining about Naruto. So, he's finally ready to start the academy. Naruto goes on for his first day, is careful that nothing happens on the way there, and manages to get there safely. No one sees him, no one throws anything, no one even knows he's there. He opens the door to the classroom as people gasp. Boys and girls alike gasp at the pale-skinned Naruto, and the teacher, Iruka, who was already standing there, had a moment of silence, not knowing what to do, but then had a terrified look, a disgusted look, that this creature was even inside his classroom. He didn't say anything, or even did anything. He just turned back to his classroom, as if Naruto was never even there. Then Naruto slowly and quietly closed the door once more, but staying inside the classroom, and then sat down in an empty row. Iruka had already started to explain to the classroom what they were going to do today, as well as in the future. Not to Naruto, though. And had said that he was happy to be their teacher, once more having a slightly disgusted look when looking over to Naruto. But in the end he said that he hopes that they can all get along nicely. Of course, he was referring to the next 4 years that they were going to be stuck in this academy, but he just said it a little bit nicer than what some students were thinking. So they started to do some tests to see how strong the students were, as well as just see what they could improve, but also what they already knew. This was a class of a lot of heirs to clans and clan heads, so it would be important to see what they could already do, and what they would have to do in the future. Now, about half of the class had known Kekkei Genkai from their clans or from their families. These were quite important children, important students. They did this by doing 3 different tests which they would compare every few months, so they could track their progress. This consists of a physical test, which is just sparring against somebody. At the beginning this was just against some classmates, but later on they might do it against a little more experienced people, such as teachers going easy or something like that. They weren't quite sure yet. Of course, it has to be done something about knowledge, which would likely be a written exam, though they weren't going to do it yet, as the students haven't been in the academy at all yet, so they weren't expected to know anything. so this test is only gonna appear later on. Then another would just be throwing kunai and shuriken, pretty easy, pretty simple test, out of 10, later on probably harder targets, and so on. Naruto was very good at all of these. Well, they only had 2 tests for now, but they focused more on the sparring one. But the kunai one was first, so he was very good. He was able to warm up with the kunais and then actually get serious in the sparring matches if he needs to. He didn't want to show off, or rather, make people think that he's actually good at something, because that'll kind of destroy his whole image, if he has any. So he gets a 3 out of 10, which is actually much better than most of the class. Just Sasuke has 6 at this point because he's very, very skilled, and was of course taught by his older brother and prodigy Itachi, who was taught by the legendary Shisui Uchiha, though both of them were very powerful and mega prodigies for their age. So anyways, Naruto is now about 5th in the ranking for the kunai throwing, and now it's time for the sparring sessions. Here, they're gonna draw lots and fight one another, or rather, spar with a classmate. Naruto is pretty lucky and gets Kiba as his opponent. Kiba of course brags that he's going to kill the demon and save the village, which is gonna make him Hokage. Completely unrealistic, but he somehow believes it himself. And whilst he can't quite understand it, Naruto thinks that his dog is encouraging this kind of behavior. Gonna have to teach you a lesson. Naruto got into a stance, but it was a weird one. He got on all 4s, as it was a stance that he learned from Kurama. And Kurama is a fox, so naturally, Naruto acted as if he was an actual animal. But it worked. Kiba and Kiba's clan was focused on dogs, so they knew quite a lot about animals. And Kiba was scared at this position of Naruto's. It was intimidating. So already, Naruto had won the mental game. The psychological fight was already over. But then the physical one began, as the proctor, which was Iruka, began the match, and Naruto jumped across the battlefield at Kiba and pinned him to the ground, the dog not being able to do anything as he's still very young. Winner Naruto. As Iruka didn't want to do anything for Naruto, and not even let him get the win. He wasn't even thinking of letting the fight go on, or letting Kiba have the win. He is weak, but better than Naruto. He's a demon. But then again, technically speaking, he did win. So Iruka, just this once, showed some level of kindness. Well, to Naruto that is. To others, he was rather kind. He was a kind soul. Just not to a demon. Naruto continued his academy journey. He kept improving, and even though he didn't want to use all his might, as he didn't want people to know his true skills, he was still very good in the academy, and no one could say he's weak. They still did, but factually, it was incorrect. Naruto continued to be shunned by the entire class, as well as the teacher. No one liked him. But Naruto took drastic measures to stop this hate. Step 1 was to change his appearance, and then later he could actually try to make Naruto have a better name for himself. He learned how to control how he looked by Kurama teaching him, well, yeah, the basic transformation jutsu, but Naruto already knew that. Kurama allowed Naruto to be able to focus on the spot and without using a jutsu, control the appearance of his hair color, and even to some extent his skin color. As with time, Naruto was able to control his pale skin into a more normal looking person's skin from Konoha. And people didn't notice directly but indirectly, it was changing their minds, even ever so slightly. People still hated him, but they didn't think of him as an alien, as a monster. They started, or some started, to think of him as a human monster, which isn't much better, but at least they consider him human. In school, or in the academy, Naruto started to dress up differently. He covered up more and more of himself, dressing in complete black. But most importantly, in his academy life, Naruto is getting stronger. Much, much stronger. Naruto was getting very, very fast at improving. Learned new jutsus every week. And if they were very basic jutsu, like a transformation technique, or just a different element to the clone technique, then Naruto was easily able to learn it in a day. Not just that, but his chakra control was immense, as he was able to save almost all, and later on completely all, chakra that was flowing out, leaking, being wasted, and even managed to cut down the amount of chakra that he needed to make jutsu. He also increased the speed at which he could make hand signs, of course continuing to increase his physical capabilities, and his array of jutsu. Naruto's now at about a low chunin level strength, though very, very rapidly increasing, so we could be looking at a high chunin, even possibly low jonin level strength in only mere months. Mind you, he's training alone right now, well, with the help of Kurama, of course, and he's still only 8.5 years old, already this powerful and increasing in strength incredibly fast. Naruto continues to improve, even though being hated by many, he continues to gain strength and work on his outward appearance. He gains respect by some, though still hated by most, especially by the teachers who are plotting to not even let him continue to become a genin and so on, making him stay an academy student for his entire life. Their plan is to make him quit, so he'll never become a shinobi. Though if they want to stop Naruto, they have another thing coming. Out of all teachers, Iruka hates Naruto the most. He has the closest connection to the Nine-Tails attack, where Kurama supposedly killed Iruka's parents, making him an orphan for his entire life. Which is partially the reason that Iruka did become an academy teacher, though he was never truly able to forgive what happened that night, especially as Naruto's the symbol is the thing that happened that night. Now skipping forward a bit, Naruto learns of elemental chakra natures as it's the next step in becoming a shinobi. In his mindscape with Kurama, he finds that his wind chakra nature is the strongest, along with fire that he's already starting to develop. Training with those first would be key to gaining strength, but then later on, when he tried to test out his chakra natures, he learned that he, for some reason, got earth chakra now. And that continued until he had all 5 chakra natures. It was unseen by Kurama, and Naruto would never even found anything about that in books, but he was gonna accept it if it was strength. Besides the basic transformation and clone jutsu, Naruto never used any of his strength in school, especially not in tests. The only tests that Naruto did excel at were written tests, where he was actually able to show his knowledge without being too unique, but in a bad way. He was trying his best not to stand out, and he was kind of succeeding. On some days, no one even noticed that Naruto was there. But now, he'd have his final tests. These were the Genin exams. There was just one problem: no one would let him go. Iruka passed out basically flyers that told the entire class to come on that day at that time to do their exams, but there was no flyer for Naruto. Naruto was left out. Not knowing what to do, he went to Hiruzen's office to ask if he could do anything about it. No matter what, Naruto wanted to succeed in becoming a shinobi, and he had to become a genin for that, so it was kind of a must. Hiruzen didn't give a straight answer, only show his concern, though he did drop a hint.
If no one knew that it was Naruto, then no one would deny him of becoming a genin. Naruto pondered about what that could mean, but he found out a way. This wasn't a very nice way, but it was the only way to becoming a shinobi. He would take someone's place that was in his class, and would kind of have to temporarily knock them out. He didn't have a problem with that though, so he chose a pretty weak person that he knew wasn't gonna pass the exams anyways, chopped him at the back of the neck, which should knock him out for about 3 hours, which would give enough time for Naruto to do the exams and get his shinobi headband, which is all he wanted, as it was the symbol of becoming a shinobi. Naruto's transformation jutsu was on point, as he was, over the years, completely able to change his appearance as he liked, without even having to use any jutsu. First was the written exam, which Naruto did very easily, and of course, he didn't stand out. He specifically chose somebody that didn't stand out, as Naruto was perfectly able to play that role, just as he had the last 4 years. Then came another test, this one of course being the clone jutsu one. But once again, Naruto mastered that with ease long ago, so there was no trouble doing it. And he even did 3 clone jutsus, or rather 3 clones, all in one. Though later on when thinking back at it, that was pretty stupid. It would just make him stand out if he did anything except for a single clone. Iruka started to suspect something, though he didn't say anything. It wasn't enough evidence to do anything, and it could just be luck, who knows. Then came another test. This test was one where they would just have to show a specific skill. It could be a jutsu, which was what most people did, but it could also be mastery of a weapon, martial arts, or so on. Naruto chose the Earth-style mud wall, which was, once again, pretty easy for him, but still pretty impressive. Well, it would have been for an academy student, but Naruto surpassed that level of strength far back. And with those 3, it was already enough to pass, though there would be a last one in case people didn't do very well on these 3. The last one would kind of be like a bonus test. You didn't have to do it to pass, but it would definitely help if you wouldn't pass normally. This test would be fighting against a genin. It was an average strength genin, so nothing crazy, but the academy students weren't expected to beat the genin, but if they could hold their own in a battle for 1 or 2 minutes, then that would already be enough to show a sign that they are as strong as a genin. So about 2/3 of the class decided to take this test as it wasn't mandatory, but people wanted to be safe anyways. The students went one after the other, and Naruto was second last. Naruto went up, and without even going into any stance of fighting, the match was called to start. The genin rushed over as he had the 5 battles before, as before was what he called warm-up. He was pretty cocky, but Naruto decided that he would put him in his place. By simply sidestepping, Naruto was easily able to dodge any of the attacks that the genin threw at him, which even included some weak jutsu. The genin tried to trick Naruto with some clone jutsu, though he saw right through it and didn't get hit a single time. Naruto's reaction speed had been trained over the months, as that's what he focused on the last half year, and it showed. Any spontaneous attack was easily dodged by Naruto, even if it wasn't planned for. And with that training, Naruto's eyes were able to perceive much more than a regular person's eyes. Now this isn't a dojutsu necessarily, though he does have one. We'll get to that later. This is just a stronger development in the eyes. So without using basically 1% of his power, Naruto easily dodged all of the genin's attacks, and with a simple punch to the chest, the genin flew back 3 meters, about 10 feet if you're American, and fell on the ground, meaning Naruto won the match. The first one out of any of the academy students to win, and even if he didn't win, that was a pretty impressive fight. Naruto would have lasted a minute, but then he kind of defeated the whole purpose of the test. But anyways, even if he didn't pass the first 3 exams, this would be enough to pass Naruto single-handedly. So Naruto would get his Konoha headband, with Iruka the proctor being very impressed and proud of the newfound genin, even though it was truly Naruto, who he actually hated. Naruto not being too proud of Konoha but still liking to be a shinobi, instead of putting his headband at his head around his forehead, he put it around his leg, more specifically his thigh, still showing to be a shinobi, though not thinking of it as a high and mighty job, as if he was an angel. He thought of shinobi more like the devil's advocate, continuing to wage war over meaningless things. Naruto had been taught by Kurama, but even naturally wanted to strive for peace in his life, and that was gonna be his main shinobi duty, and more importantly, duty as a human. He was gonna try to make the world a better place step by step, even if it cost him his life. But for now, he had to wait the evening to get his Jonin sensei on the next day. Though then he remembered that he wasn't truly a genin. Naruto, he was still a loser. An academy student that didn't even become a genin, that didn't even try to take the exams. He just took another person's identity. But that was enough for Naruto. Naruto didn't really care for the title of shinobi. Naruto just wanted to show the shinobi world what a shinobi is truly supposed to be, as he felt that over the decades and over the centuries, the shinobi had lost their way. For today, he was thinking of watching the newly found genin teams to see what they are up to, as if he wanted to strive for world peace, he'd have to know what the new generation of shinobi is doing. Usually he wouldn't be able to hide from Jonin so easily, but thanks to Kurama being inside Naruto, Kurama, with Naruto's command, can turn off every and all type of chakra inside Naruto, making him basically invisible, and to some extent, not even quite living. Though for some reason Naruto was able to survive it, and actually do very okay. It was just like being normal for him. Well, if anything that he did was truly normal, that is. Naruto first watched his father's student, who was Kakashi, teaching his new genin team, which consisted of Sasuke, the last Uchiha, a person appreciated so much for not having done anything in his life so far, Sakura, a useless, obnoxious, loud girl whose only skills were being able to read books, and another person, boy that was just pretty normal. There's no real issue to him, though he was kind of lacking a personality. Naruto kept on watching, then moves on to Might Guy's team, Kakashi's rival, then to the next team, led by Kurenai, a genjutsu master, and then to the last team, led by Hiruzen's nephew, Asuma Sarutobi, which Naruto mostly just knew as a wind user, just like himself.
Naruto's now been watching each of the genin teams and their senseis very closely, thinking about anything that he could learn from each one, or, if anything, if he can learn something from the students of those genin teams. Though most of their skills depend on Kekkei Genkai, which would be kinda hard for Naruto to have. Now, of course, Naruto loves seeing many types of genjutsu, ninjutsu, and so on, and is even interested in some dojutsu, such as the Sharingan owned by Kakashi Hatake, though he's very intrigued by Might Guy, a very different kind of shinobi. No genjutsu, ninjutsu, or even really any chakra usage, except for a toad summoning, but not even that, it's a turtle. But not a fighting one, more of a... well, he doesn't even know. It's really just a turtle. Well, besides that, the only thing going for him is taijutsu. But even with just taijutsu, he's one of the most highly regarded people in all of Konoha. Even put up on the same level as Kakashi, who is pretty much a legend. And whilst not many even know about it, the 8 Gates technique is deadly. It's the forbidden ultimate taijutsu technique, though once learned and mastered, it's devastating. With pure taijutsu, Might Guy with the 8 gates would likely be on the level of Kage, not even fully maxing out the power of all 8 gates activated, as all of them would kill you after mere moments. Though when correctly applied, 5 or 6 gates should be used without a problem, still giving you enough power, though not leaving any long-term damage or killing you. Naruto wants to learn this technique, as he's learned that his regenerative abilities are far above that of normal people. When he gets grapes off of training, or anything really, he regenerates much faster than he did when he was younger. And really, his regenerative abilities have just increased over the years. He doesn't know why, how, or when. Each time he sees him regenerating, it's just better, faster, and stronger. As a child, he regenerated as a normal human, though now, a bone injury which would take a normal person a week to heal, he can heal in less than a day. So even if he got many injuries with the 8 gates, he could heal them much faster, especially if his regenerative abilities kept increasing more and more, or if he was able to control them and train them. That'd be even better. Though he's not going to hope for much, as Kurama told him to stay humble and to keep expectations to a minimum. First things first, he would need to actually be able to learn the technique in the first place. There's only one person that could teach the 8 inner gates, and that's Might Guy. But how in the hell could he control, or in the best scenario, convince Might Guy, one of the highly regarded Jonin, to train Naruto? I mean, if anything, he's gonna train his older siblings, or his own students. There's another fighter which Might Guy has apparently taken liking to him, which is named Rock Lee. Naruto knows him a little bit, but in the worst case, Rock Lee would have to be eliminated. But enough of that. Naruto can think about this later. For now, he needs to know what he's gonna do in the next few weeks. He now has his leaf headband, and basically dropped out as a shinobi, unofficially of course. So what's he gonna do now? Even if he's a shinobi, none of the villagers will accept that. So what will he do, whilst his teammates are gonna be doing D-rank missions and even harder soon? Or even going into the tuning exams? What the hell would he do? But then it came to him. If no one knew that it was Naruto as a shinobi, then no one would complain, right? Now Naruto has taken very much of a liking to the Anbu. Their shadows, how they cover themselves up, their speed, sensing abilities, and teamwork, their preciseness, and ways to follow orders. Of course, he is aware of the split between the Root and the Black Ops, however, he still admires both parties. Even if he hates Danzo, he still admires the Root, as they have their own way of working in a team, following orders and executing missions, and even though he hates what they stand for, he admires them nonetheless. Naruto, knowing that there would be many missions active, with Anbu working in them, at night or earliest in the evening, he first had to wait. He noticed that the Genin teams went away from their leader pretty early already, so he wasn't gonna miss much. He went home, relaxed, slept a little bit, as he knew the night would get dangerous. At 8 PM sharp, Naruto left his home, dressed in complete black, but without his leaf headband. Yes, it meant a lot to him, but he didn't want it to be seen. Today, at least. As Naruto was gonna pretend to be a criminal. He would need to steal the mask and the rest of the equipment of one Anbu member, and lucky for him, there was a 3-man Anbu team going right towards him, as Naruto stationed himself in one of the thickest parts of the forest nearby, as he was perfect at hiding in the trees and catching his opponents off guard, and that's exactly what he did. He took out one after the other. He was able to completely
diminish his chakra into mere nothingness, so no one could notice that he was even there, and was able to pick one after the other up, silently and fast. So after only 3 seconds, 3 different Anbu had all been taken out and knocked unconscious by a 12-year-old. Naruto didn't even need to use any ninjutsu. Just his speed was enough. He chose the Anbu that was a little bit smaller than the other two, which was about the same height as Naruto, a little bit taller, but Naruto would still grow, so it'd be fine. But for now, he needed an outfit that would kind of match his posture and height. Naruto took the mask, some other accessories from the other 2 Anbu, and then one complete Anbu outfit, and left, with no traces except the 3 knocked out shinobi. These were root Anbu. Naruto wasn't concerned what branch the Anbu were from, though it would come back to bite him later on. Naruto went back to sleep as if nothing ever happened, and then woke up in the next morning and got ready for the day. This was once again a day of spying on the Genin teams. He knew that each one would have a little bit of different tests, and he would observe what kind of tests each sensei had. He saw an interesting one with Kakashi, which was passed down all the time from Team 7, and Team 7 was notorious for having it. It was called the Bell Test, first invented by Kurama, and then passed down through each of the captains / senseis, as each one of the senseis was a student of the previous one. So the test was passed along, and now it was being executed by Kakashi. Might Guy, of course, had a taijutsu based test, as that was the only thing that he could really do, which was anyone that hit him would pass. Of course, there was a psychological element of it, but Naruto didn't really care that much about it. He wanted to see other people's skills, and that's it, really. Naruto was observing and mentally taking notes. Then there was also Kurenai and Asuma, each one doing a similar test to Guy, though they of course used ninjutsu as well. Nothing hard though, nothing that would hurt their students, though Kakashi was a little bit more brutal, even using genjutsu to scare off his genin, even scarring one to tear up and cry out for help. Though of course she would be fine afterwards. Naruto was interested in Kakashi as a sensei the most. He knew that Kakashi was part of the Anbu back in the day, especially because Naruto personally used to be somewhat attached to Kakashi, though that backfired as well. Kakashi was Minato's student after all, and Kakashi had similar views as Jiraiya. Now, Kakashi didn't actively seek out Naruto to bully him, though it did happen, occasionally, but it still hurt. Naruto is gonna be better than any sensei of these, better than any Anbu, better than any shinobi. He was gonna be the shinobi and teach all the others, rather than be taught himself. He was gonna take Kurama's teachings to heart, and become the real shinobi. What a shinobi should be. Naruto hears a bang. When looking up, he saw smoke. It came from the Hokage's office. When hearing the explosion of the Hokage tower, Naruto immediately went up to investigate. However, he didn't have to use the entrance or the normal door. He could see right through the building. Half the floor where the Hokage would usually be residing was completely gone. The walls ripped apart, thrown at the floor in individual pieces of rock. The floor teared up, even slightly charred, as it was made out of wood. In the middle of the remaining floor stood Danzo, leader of the Root, facing off Hiruzen, whose clothes were somewhat ripped, but still stood right in front of Danzo. They stared each other down, though Danzo started to speak, started to demand a response from Hiruzen. Danzo was acclaiming that Hiruzen was the one who had knocked out and stole from the Root's Anbu. Hiruzen denied all claims, though Danzo stayed persistent. He didn't believe a word that Hiruzen said. They had always had a rivalry, and Danzo thought that this was the ploy for Hiruzen to have one of his henchmen disguise themselves as a root and take down the entire organization. It was the last straw, and Danzo was prepared for a battle. A battle for control of the Leaf Village. Naruto watched this unfold as he knew he was the reason that this was happening in the first place, so he should probably fix it. Especially now being a shinobi, it was his duty to protect the village. Naruto didn't want to wait around until Danzo gives a whole speech and waits for Hiruzen's response, so he's gonna act right now. He rushed over and kicked Hiruzen to his side. Not really because he was the problem in this conflict, he just wanted to hit people for some reason. No, but in all honesty, it was to save Hiruzen, as there was going to be an absolute massacre that was about to go on. Packing out his taijutsu, Naruto went in for Danzo and started fighting. His eyes tracking Danzo's every move, and time seemed to slow down more and more. Naruto's eyes seemed to start glowing more and more. They turned into a bright turquoise, then into a more bluish tone, though still very light. Like the Tensegan, but glowing more. Glaring like a Sharingan in its prime. As if a blue flame was being fought inside Naruto's eyes. However, the abilities that this allowed Naruto to give and use were incredible. Naruto's eyesight far surpassed that of the Sharingan or even the Tensegan. Naruto had a cloak appear shortly after, also a similar color, turquoise, and rings as well as Tomoe appear in his eyes. The other one getting a circle inside of the eyes without Tomoe or the other circles. So one eye had Tomoe in circles, the other had just one big circle in the middle. One representing the Tensegan and Byakugan, the other the Rinnegan and Sharingan. And Naruto's hands started to change as well. His entire body did. It morphed more and more. Naruto became taller, more muscular, well built, had a more lean aesthetic to him, and his facial expression changed. He became serious, with the look of an old man, an experienced warrior at the same time. Naruto started fighting as if he'd fought many battles before, using his new eyes perfectly, using every ability he had, fighting at the speed of an absolute professional. However, Danzo was not the only problem. Not only did Naruto now realize that Danzo had many tricks up his sleeve, including a lot of Mangekyo Sharingans hidden inside his arm, as well as his quote-unquote lost or broken eye, but also many of the roots Anbu started rushing the village and especially the Hokage area, and a civil war broke out inside the Leaf Village. And Naruto would be the one to save everyone. He rushed across the village in a zoom, killing many shinobi, though only Anbu, the roots Anbu, were killed. He left Danzo alone for a while as he had grabbed Hiruzen to get him away from Danzo, as he knew Hiruzen would likely be killed in this encounter, if he was left to his own. However, even whilst fighting, Naruto's power seemed to increase more and more, as the reason suddenly popped into his head. He didn't know why, he never even thought about it, but it was right there. Naruto gets more powerful the prouder he is. The God Clan is a humble but also very proud clan, which is why their power increases as they become more and more proud, which is why the king and queen are actually the most powerful. And Naruto, being more and more confident in his power, especially while starting to fight, became more and more powerful, having an exponential increase at the beginning of his battle, but even increasing now, seeing that he is demolishing the entire Leaf Village. Naruto had perfect vision, a 3 Tomoe Sharingan, 1 Rinnegan, a Tensegan with its cloak, and physical prowess, and much more. His speed at this point not even being rivaled by Minato himself, as he ripped through the entire route and kill Danzo effectively. And he would need to kill Danzo a few more times. But finally, Danzo was done for, and the root had completely been annihilated, each and every member. But that wasn't enough. Naruto was feeling up to it. So, he went to the forest, searching for something. A load of information popped into his head as every person that he killed, he got that information. And as Danzo was one of them, he got information about a hideout of the Akatsuki. And he knew that they would be the most important threat to the Leaf Village, probably for the next few decades, which is why he would have to eliminate them now. He went, and with the insane speed he still had, he went to the Akatsuki, who were having a meeting at the moment, and annihilated each and every member. Kisame, Itachi, Pain, Kunan, Hidan, Kakuzu. None of them were a problem. Sasori, Deidara, and Black Zetsu, well, they weren't even an issue. Naruto destroyed each and every one of them, finding their weakness and annihilating them in a matter of seconds, not even needing to use any hand signs, as at this point he could use any jutsu he longed for without hand signs. And he eliminated Black Zetsu, as after killing all the Akatsuki, he found out about Zetsu, as yes, he does gain all the memories of every person he kills, and he can skim through them in an instant, knowing all that they know, and experiencing all that they had experienced in their lifetime. So now, after having killed many dozen people, he's wiser than any one person, stronger than any one person, and more experienced than any one person. He is truly a legend. Naruto goes back to the village, but he's not complete yet. He does a summoning jutsu, once again, without any hand signs, and multiple people pop out. First is Kushina Uzumaki. Second is Minato Namikaze. He didn't need their DNA. He was able to do it, just like this. And they were completely alive. Not reanimated. They were actually alive. As with his Rinnegan, he was able to completely revive them using the King of Hell. And with his immense chakra, he didn't even take any damage or have any lashback at reviving two people out of the blue. And then Naruto calmed down, being opened with the arms of his mother. The person that, even though she had just met her son 12 years since the last time, which was the time that she died, she loved him. And Minato did too. So, after this day, which changed the entire world forever, Naruto's parents would change the village as well. They made a complete reform of the village, thanked Hiruzen for what he did, completely shamed the entire shinobi forces, especially Jiraiya and Kakashi, who knew of Naruto and knew who he was or who he should be, yet hated him even more. Minato became Hokage, and after a while, he would take over, or rather, give the role to Naruto, as Naruto was wise, a wiser man than even Minato himself, more experienced and more powerful by far. And then, when he felt fully accomplished, Naruto got one more memory along with a power. The memory showed him his life on the omni-clan's planet, where he grew up for a long time, where he was born and blessed by the king and queen. And it was this blessing that made him even more powerful than he would have been, and made his proudness stronger than it would have ever been. And by getting back this memory, he also got a power to travel across the universe and get back to his planet safely, where he was greeted by his parents once more. And the only reason he got this power was because the omni-clan's king had put a seal on that power of Naruto's, as it was taught to him as one of the first things. It was a necessity for the omni-clan, but it was sealed away, and the only thing that Naruto could do to get it back was establish peace on his new planet, which he now did. So he got a key back, the key to his powers and his memories. He was greeted back on his planet and lived happily ever after.